evening, artists, and welcome back to Super Happy Art Adventure Times. Today we are going to travel to a new part of the world. We are going to travel to the Indus River Valley, which is located between Pakistan and northern India. So let's take a look at this really incredible civilization. So the Indus River Valley developed on a riverbed that was constantly flooding, so that way the soil was always being replenished, and it was very suitable area for farming and agriculture. So the really amazing thing about the Indus Valley civilization is that they had two very large cities called Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. And this civilization existed 4,000 years ago. So we're talking about 3,300 BC to 1300 BCE. That's around the time of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. It's an incredibly old civilization. So you can see the Indus River there, okay, and you can see the cities that developed along that river. So let's talk about Mohenjo-Daro today. Mohenjo-Daro is an awesome, super cool city because it had a very strong plan. 4,000 years ago, people thought that they should plan their cities out before they started building them. So Mohenjo-Daro has a grid plan. You can see the streets run north, south, east, west. It also has two sections of the city. You have the Citadel here, and then the lower part of the city over here. This is the Citadel, and this is the lower part of the city. The lower part of the city is where the houses would have been. The Citadel looked something like this, and it had a granary for storing grains, and it had a swimming pool. It was incredible. Mohenjo-Daro is amazing because the people thought a lot about sanitation and cleanliness. They had washrooms and fresh water within their homes. That's really impressive considering how old this civilization was. Here's some pictures of the Great Bath that was at the Citadel. Okay. So what we're going to focus on today is something called urban planning. Urban planning is the design of cities. It's how you lay out your streets. It's where you choose to put certain buildings and where you choose to put train lines, and how you make sure all people can access fresh water, make sure all people can access transportation. So urban planning is super duper important, okay? And we are going to look today at the urban planning of Mohenjo-Daro specifically. And we're going to learn how to draw an urban plan. When I say urban, I'm talking about cities. So we're going to draw a city plan today. So let's get started. What you're going to need for class today is a pencil and some markers and some watercolor paints. All right. So first things first about Mohenjo-Daro is that in the middle of the city there is a market. So on my paper, I'm just going to put a square in the middle of the paper. And then I'm going to draw another square around it, or another rectangle, I should say. Okay, so this is the market in the center of the city. Now coming out from the market, you have streets running north, streets running south, east, and west. So I'm going to go up like this. This is my street going north, my street going south, my street going east, now my street going west. Now on the western part of the city, you have something called the Citadel. That's this section here. This is kind of the part of the city that's up higher. This is where the granary would have been and where the Great Bath would have been. So for this section, I'm just going to go down like this, straight line down. Okay. From here, I'm going to make a triangle. And I'm always going to follow my lines with a second line, because these would have been walled sections of the city. I'm going to connect my triangle to that line there. Okay? And then from the triangle, I'm just going to go up, over, like this, down. Okay? And then maybe I'll make a section like this. There's like a L section attached. Okay? And down like this. All right, now I've got to close the Citadel section off. Bring this line over and bring its buddy like that. All right, so as I said, inside the Citadel is the Great Bath, the super awesome swimming pool. So I'm going to put that in. Whee! Okay, And I'm also going to put in some other smaller buildings that might have been there. I'm just making squares and rectangles. Okay, and now I'm going to do the citadel itself. The citadel is kind of like the tower. So I'm going to do a curved line like this, and then I'm going to go swoop, swoop, and I'm just going to put a circle on top of that. Kind of looks like a volcano. Okay, so we've done the citadel, and now let's go back to the lower town. Okay, this is where the houses would have been. So the town is surrounded by a wall. Okay, you can see a wall is going around the town. This might have been to help with flooding or to provide some protection against invaders if they did come. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build, okay, a line down like this. All right, and Mohenjo-Daro kind of has like a hexagon sort of wall going around it. So now I'm going to go diagonal, okay, and then I'm going to go straight, diagonal, and then I'm just going to go straight up, like this, okay. Now I'm going to go diagonal again, straight, okay, and then I'm going to go diagonal. Okay, so this is the wall that would be surrounding Mohenjo-Daro. I'm just going to bring my north-south streets down. Okay, there would have been gates leading into the city. So I'm going to put a rectangle on this side and on this side to signal that this is a gate. This is an entry point into Mohenjo-Daro. And they had one on the south end as well. Okay, and one on the east, right there. All right, also inside Mohenjo-Daro, there was an arena. I'm going to build a big square like this. This is kind of like a gymnasium where people would have gone for sporting events. So it's like a big rectangle in this section of the city. They also had an area for cattle to graze. So I'm going to build a field over here. Okay, like that. And this is where my cattle would be grazing. Now, as we said, the city has a grid plan. So all the streets run perfectly straight, okay, and they're running north, south, east, west. So I'm going to put some more streets in up here, going across, okay, and then I'm going to add a road going north, south. All right, I'm going to add another street here, okay, and in between the streets, we can draw smaller rectangles and squares. Okay, these signify the houses. And the cool thing about the houses was that most of them were pretty much the same size. There wasn't one house that was necessarily larger than the others or had high walls around it. And what we can infer from this is that most of the people living in Mohenjo-Daro were of equal wealth, of equal social class. And you can also sort of infer this because every home had a washroom and had central plumbing, and had a way to carry away waste, to carry away sewage. Okay, so all I'm doing now is I'm starting to draw in the little houses. But it's important to think about green space as well. So in the city, I'm going to add a little bit of a forest. I'm going to draw some swirly shapes with my marker. I'm going to put in a forest or a green area, okay, where maybe the cattle can go from time to time, or people can take walks in the woods. This would be the forest. And I'm going to put it in the southern part of the city this time. Okay, so I've got my little forest now. And as we said, Mohenjo-Daro is in the Indus River Valley, so there would have been a river flowing on this side of the city and on this side of the city. Water was really important to this civilization, and so people made sure to build near the river, but also to make sure that they used the river in a way where they could keep their city clean and keep themselves clean. So I'm going to just do some wavy lines, okay? You can see my river sort of forks at the top of my page, like that. Then I can color the river in, color it in blue, okay? Or I could watercolor paint. So I'm going to get my watercolor paint palette out. And where's my brush? Water cup and paintbrush. So I'm going to use my blue to paint in my river. Okay, and the Indus River would often flood. So the people living in this civilization had to think about ways to control the flooding. So they would build levees, which are something you can, we still use to this day, which go along the riverbank to make sure you can sort of control how much water is overflowing. Okay, now I'm going to do the ground. So I'm going to wash my brush. I'm going to mix some yellow with some brown to make kind of the ground color here. Okay, so this is the urban plan for Mohenjo-Daro, but I would like you guys to also come up with your own urban plan. So think about shapes. What shape do you want your city to take? Mohenjo-Daro sort of has like a hexagon shape, but maybe your city is based around a circle, or maybe it's based around a star shape or a moon shape. You get to choose. But you really want to think about a city plan that allows perhaps the city to grow, for the population to expand. Mohenjo-Daro at its peak had about 60,000 people living in it. That's quite a lot of people considering this is ancient times, BCE. So that was very impressive that they had this high of a population and that they had plumbing. They had a system of sanitation and sewage management. Okay, so I'm going to take my time to continue painting in the background, and I hope you all enjoy making your urban plan for Mohenjo-Daro today.